Welcome to part 1 of an ongoing series I'm calling... No, seriously, what the fuck is happening in Darktide? Today we're going to start with what really sets the stage for the entirety of Darktide to take place. The Mobian 6 and their fall to chaos, which we learn a lot about through the Martyr Skulls and their memory echoes. Obey my cat! Hit the subscribe button. The Mobian 6 is a regiment within the Astra Militarum, aka the Imperial Guard, of the Mobian domain. Since the sector of space the Mobian domain is likely in butts up against a void so far uncharted by the Imperium, a strong military presence is needed on the front of what's called the Fringe War to hold back the conglomeration of enemies of mankind in the Mobian domain, collectively called the Darktide. Of all the regiments of the Mobian military, the 6th is considered one of the most fearsome and highly praised.
I still remember the parade they threw us. Heroes, one and all we are, bringing light to the darkness of the Fringe.
Which honestly makes me a little concerned about the quality of the other Mobian regiments because, I don't know man, who do you think should win? An entire battalion of highly trained deadly soldiers or 4 crackheads with a rock? Although to be fair, it is a pretty big rock. Many soldiers of the 6th, as well as any regiment in the Imperial Guard, volunteered or were conscripted for service at a relatively young age, and conscripting can happen in a variety of ways. Criminals will sometimes be given the choice between prison/execution or military service.
Enforcers caught me cracking a hab, didn't they? So it was join up, or end up on the rad shift in the mines.
This is a concept with which we're all familiar because dying in service of defending Tertium instead of going straight to the executioner's block is exactly how our characters came to be involved with the events of Darktide. As a planet that's part of the Imperium of Man, Atoma Prime would have minimums to meet with the amount of soldiers they have to provide to the Astra Militarum, and sometimes when volunteers fall short of those quotas,
I shouldn't even be here. Tithe fell short of recruits, so they dragged Throneside to make up the numbers. I got caught in the net.
People are more or less kidnapped and forced into service. While the bulk of the Mobian 6 may be your typical citizen who's down on their luck and in over their heads, the leadership and higher ranks within the regiment don't all necessarily fit that mold. People generally respect good leaders, those who go out of their way to both lead by example and action, as well as go above and beyond for the people under their oversight. It builds strong bonds in teams and instills loyalty to their shared cause. The Mobian 6 is no exception, and they have 2 very strong leaders who they have the utmost respect and adoration for in Colonel Gorton and Captain Wolfer. Wolfer is the leader of the Mobian 6 we're most familiar with, being that he's one of the main antagonists of Darktide. What we see and hear of him in Darktide ourselves seems to be standard behavior for him. He's a gruff, hot-headed man with little patience for incompetence. But there is more to him and his relationship with the soldiers in his squad than we see through just his Vox communications in-game. He's known for being the kind of leader that takes a front position on the battlefield and risks his own safety to ensure as many of his soldiers as possible are able to make it home.
All for Skulls. He earned them saving men under his command. So watch your lip. Got it?
This loyalty and dedication has fostered a devotion to him amongst his men that is unwavering.
I'd follow that man anywhere.
For most regiments of the Astra Militarum, troops are led by a colonel, and in the case of the Mobian 6, they were led by one Colonel Gorton. He's a noble-born, but coming from a pampered background apparently does not keep him from getting into the gritty work that comes from daily life in the Guard, and the soldiers of the 6th respect him for it.
I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Gorton would die for any of us. How can we do less?
Aside from Wolfer, there's also Captain Helmag, who's a female officer that has apparently had some trouble having a stiff enough backbone to hang as a leader in the 6th, so it sounds like Wolfer has taken her under his wing.
She needs to toughen up. Captain Helmag relies on Wolfer too much. Leader's gotta lead by herself, right?
We'll be cracking into Helmag and if she might be important later on in the series. There's also a Commissar Magson, who seems to be a real bastard.
Magson killed more of us than the Karkin enemy today.
And a Sergeant Gearin, who the only thing we ever hear about them is that they presumably died.
Sir, this is Sergeant Gearin at Anchor Point, your home. We need help!
Other notable characters that aren't in the ranks of leadership, but still important, are one Ridenda and Roden Karnak, the highborn blue bloods themselves, who get a reputation for being particularly ruthless and effective soldiers.
Throne! The Karnak twins have punched through! We might just win this!
Overall, the regiment seems pretty tight-knit and functions well enough as a team, until the Mobian 6 is deployed to the death world, Nox Alpha.
We're a long way from Atoma now, ain't we?
Come visit beautiful Nox Alpha! Ever heard the phrase, "don't drink the water"? Well, here you won't want to even breathe the air. Enjoy our many popular sites and locales such as The Void, Grundrak Forest, home of the weeping pus trees, and don't forget to say hi to the Nox Alpha, the nightmares never cease.
Sickly skies, weeping trees, and that smell! Nox Alpha's no paradise world, eh?
In case my scathing sarcasm didn't get the point across, death worlds are awful places where everything, the plants and in the case of Nox Alpha, even the air itself, are actively trying to kill you.
I don't care what anyone says. Air shouldn't taste like that.
The Six have been deployed to this planet to combat an unknown foe as part of the Fringe War campaign, and despite their combat record and prowess, things don't go well for the Sixth.
Platoon fire on my order! Let's show them how the Sixth fights! We lost contact with Callan and company during the drop, sir. We're on our own. 5,000 of us gone in 3 hours. This isn't war. It's slaughter.
The Mobians are seemingly hit hard and lose many troops to battle losses. But worse than that, the field of war itself is a literal hellscape, and finding themselves without any gas masks or protective gear, the soldiers start succumbing to unusual diseases.
Sir, the men are getting sick, sir. Real sick. Lost another 3 to the Nox rot last night. Why can't the medics do something? You remember how Dana kept complaining of bellyache? He just burst yesterday. Maggots everywhere. Don't envy the clean-up crew.
And just to put the icing on the shit cake they've been served, something sinister starts reaching into the minds of the troops and touching them with insanity. Dark, strange shadows are reported. Men drop dead just from fear alone, fear of something that apparently only they were able to see.
You hear something about the spectral figure roaming round out there? They found Marek this morning, face down in the mud and his eyes wide. Scared to death by something only he could see.
While it isn't just completely spelled out for us, here is what the overall situation on Nox Alpha seems it probably sums to. Nox Alpha isn't just any old regular death world. It is quite possibly a planet that is heavily touched by or directly connected to the realm of Nurgle. Trees weeping pus, toxic air, and dense forests through which only a psyker can see the way through all fit the bill for being things you'd expect to find in the very literal Garden of Nurgle. The many diseases the men contract during their time on the surface are complex and terrible. Medics are unable to treat the Nox rot, and eventually many die to what's known as Lunger's cough. Others begin to bloat and decay on the inside until they eventually burst into a spew of gore and maggots. We actually have heard about diseases that mystify medics before, from Wormwood before the invasion of Tertium truly began.
I have visited a nearby zone where I found an aid station and spoke to a medic. She was too afraid of censure to verify specifics, but she told me that the plague does not respond to standard curative treatments. I fear, therefore, the malady may have some component of the warp.
And we've seen diseases active in Tertium that cause people to burst, leaving nothing behind but body parts, gooey viscera, and maggots. In fact, this in particular is similar to how Nurgle's rot has been described in its final stage, depending on your lore source. The nightmares, whispering and laughing, and terrifying shadows the men see everywhere is actually the influence of direct contact with the Immaterium, or the warp, warp on their minds. It's driving them mad, and for those among them strong enough to remain steady through the madness, it begins to speak to them. The whispers of Nurgle himself begin to reach out to the Mobian 6 to tell them that the light of the Emperor is gone from their sight, they've been abandoned and forgotten on this horrible world, and it is here that they will die. But it doesn't have to end that way. There are other means to salvation, a new truth to learn, a path to endurance and redemption that will save their lives, and some among the 6th begin to listen. It is during their deployment to Nox Alpha that both Captain Wolfer and Colonel Gorton begin to have a new priest in their presence. It's unclear whether it's just one priest seen with both leaders, or if there's at least 2 present in their company, but ultimately, it doesn't matter. What matters is they're kind of creepy and no one seems to like them.
Now, don't tell anyone, but old Gorton's got himself a new priest. Gives me the shudders. Wolfer's got a new priest by his side. Maybe she transferred from a different company.
It's also during the Nox Alpha deployment that we get our first known confirmation that Rinda Karnak has turned to cannibalism.
Say what you like about her, but there's always good eating in Rinda Karnak's bivvy. No sign of Troop Roland. Still, at least it's put an end to his feud with Rinda Karnak. Why is it that we're starving and Rinda Karnak's squad are eating well?
Certain squads have become bizarrely resistant to the Nox Rot, and aggression begins building within the ranks.
Wolfer's rages are getting worse. Captain Helmack can't keep covering for him much longer.
Beloved leaders like Colonel Gorton begin acting erratically, and trust begins to erode.
Where the cark in hell is Colonel Gorton? No one's seen him for weeks. Mate of mine said that Colonel Gorton was acting strange before he vanished.
Broken by the suffering he and his men have endured, his faith in the Emperor and the Imperium of Man fully shattered, Wolfer does the only thing that he can accept as truth anymore: save his life and the lives of as many of his men as he can from being claimed by the damnation they've been sent to by the Astra Militarum. Wolfer makes a pact with the mysterious cult priests that they found on Nox Alpha, pledging himself and his men to the service of chaos, to Nurgle, and supporting the Cult of Admonition in their siege of Tertium back on their home world of Atoma Prime.
I'm hearing something strange went on with Wolfer's company last night.
After likely performing some kind of ritual outside the bastion of camp, Wolfer gathers his men and they march back to the Loyalist stronghold. Any members of the Mobian 6 that do not submit to chaos are marked as irredeemable and their enemy.
Word just came down from command. Wolfer's turned traitor.
A slaughter begins, and soon, all that's left of the Mobian 6 are the soldiers so loyal to Wolfer, they'd truly follow him anywhere.
No one gives a speech like Captain Wolfer. I'd follow that man anywhere.
It's unclear exactly who called the Mobian 6 back to Tertium to help maintain order during the growing outbreak of mysterious plague that's ravaging the city. Certainly it had to be someone from the Administratum or within the ruling House Margrave themselves. But the real question on my mind that we've yet to have answered is, did whomever gave that order know about the terrible new truth about the 6? We do know some communication from the Loyalists on Nox Alpha about the heresy was made.
Sir, this is Sergeant Kieran at Anchor Point, your home. Wolfer's men are killing everyone. We need help!
How high up in Tertium spires do the tendrils of admonition reach? Was the entire schism orchestrated masterfully from the very beginning? That and more answers we'll hopefully discover together as we work through the thick bog of no, seriously, what the fuck is happening in Darktide? Thanks so much for watching! Oh, and if you want to come play Darktide with me or other games like Space Marine 2 or Helldivers 2, then drop a sub here and come say hi during the next stream. I love playing with the community and meeting new people. Until next time, I love you nerds, and I'll see you out there against the Darktide.